Build Show friends, guess what? Today is episode 2 of Building on an Island. That's right. Hopefully you caught episode 1. This is a series that my team has put together with a builder friend of mine, Wade Paquin, out in Rhode Island. He's building a really cool custom home out on this place called Block Island, which is off the coast of Rhode Island. And there's a ton of challenges involved with this. This is the episode where Wade's going to be getting into footings and foundation. He's going to take a trip to the concrete plant. Think about a concrete plant on an island and all the logistics of actually making concrete. Really cool series, guys. Thanks for staying tuned here on my YouTube channel. We're going to publish all 18 episodes of this, but if you actually want to catch ahead, go over to my website, buildshownetwork.com, because we're a couple episodes ahead on buildshownetwork.com. And while you're there, by the way, sign up for our newsletter. We're sending a newsletter every Tuesday and every Friday that's going to tell you what's new on the website, because besides my 2 videos a week, I've got some other contributors now, if you haven't been paying attention, and we're actually publishing 10 new videos a week over on buildshownetwork.com. All right, guys, Building on an Island, episode 2. Let's get going.
The Building on an Island series is sponsored by Anderson Windows and Doors, the Unico System, Key Link Fencing and Railing, and Legend.
Today I'm at the Westerly State Airport, where I'll be hopping a short flight heading out to Block Island. We've got an exciting day on the job site. We'll be placing concrete for our foundation wall footings, so really a milestone day. We decided to take a flight over since the flight is only a 12-minute ride versus an hour on the ferry. So we can get out there quickly. We don't want to delay our concrete subcontractor, right? He's antsy to get that concrete in the ground and have a productive day. So we're going to hop on a plane and head out to the job site. So about a half hour from the airport here to the job site. Gorgeous day, beautiful flight, real quick and easy to get out here today. We got here a couple minutes before the concrete truck arrived. We met with Billy Rose, he's our local concrete subcontractor. We got him up and running here. He's placing the concrete for our footings behind me. Now I was here 8 days ago. Last week was when we started the excavation for the project. And that was a pretty quick and easy process. As I had said on the first episode, we weren't anticipating any issues in the ground here with ledge or high water table or anything like that. The material here, typically on the island, is nice and gravelly, maybe a little bit of clay, and that's exactly what we encountered here. So it made the excavation go quite quickly. We wrapped up excavation earlier this week, and Billy and his crew started setting up the formwork yesterday. They got the rebar in place here in the bottom of the forms, those 2 horizontal bars. And after they get our footings placed today, they're going to wet set the uprights, and that is going to connect to the vertical bars, ultimately the foundation walls. Now, when you see that concrete truck over my shoulder and knowing that we're building on an island, you might be wondering, how do we get concrete truck on an island, right? I think I alluded to in the first episode that concrete is not allowed on the ferry. A dry truck is, meaning an empty truck, but you cannot take a wet mix in a concrete truck over to the island. So it's a very unique situation how the raw materials get over to the island and how it's manufactured to ultimately get in that truck and get out to the job site. So we're gonna chat with Billy Rose once he gets our footings placed, and hopefully I can convince him to take us over to his facility and show us how he manufactures his concrete. So we've got William Rose with us. He's our concrete subcontractor. William, thanks for helping us out.
No problem.
Appreciate it. You have been out here for a while doing concrete work, second generation, I believe, but your family's been out here for much longer, since the 1600s?
That's true. Tormont Rose was one of the original settlers, and We have a long history here for sure. And I've been doing this with my father since I was probably 12 years old, around the trucks and machine and equipment, and seen a lot. So other than that, I mean, we've evolved quite a bit over the years. You know, we've upgraded our trucks, our setup as far as how we batch mix it. You know, we used to do, I mean, you know, it's quite a challenge on Block Island.
I'm sure. We're learning that.
Well, of course, you know, being an island, you have to import all your product, your dust, your aggregates, which is your stone and your sand to make the concrete.
Sure.
And I mean, it is, you know, with the ferries, for example, a dust trailer is a very unique trailer because it has a very low bottom to it. And what happens with something with a low bottom, you actually have to time it around a perfect tide. And the reason that is because the ramp that the ferry backs into, if it has too much of an angle to it, kinked, because the ferry goes with the tide, the truck pulling off the boat, it could bottom out. It could hit its bottom. So you actually have to, sometimes you have to wait almost a month to get a delivery of dust. So you have to do a lot of pre-planning. You have to look at the jobs you got ahead of you. Okay, I can, you know, pour that one, this one, and that one, and then I'm out of dust. And hopefully everything times itself out right,
which is probably rare because you're on an island, and not only do you have to wait for that, you know, ideal tide every month, but then you could end up with a storm, right? A high wind day or something, and even though you have the tide level, the ferry might not be running.
It can go two different directions, that's true. You may get your dust delivery canceled, and then you have to wait for another good tide. But if I don't use up the quantity in my silo, so I have enough storage for the next load, say if in that time I'm unable to pour the jobs due to bad weather or breakdowns or whatever, and I don't empty that silo out enough, then there's another thing that can happen there as well. You know,
logistics,
exactly,
and a lot of unknowns. I don't know how you manage all of it, but you know, I know being out here and doing this job so far, and having you help us out with it, the process is fascinating for what you have to deal with getting all those materials on over here.
Yeah.
How do you get all this stuff processed and ultimately into your truck? You're doing that somewhere locally here, right?
Yes, I do it at my yard. We've owned a facility that's been grandfathered in since 1932, where you can operate out of. It's you know, we've done a lot of work to it as far as cleanup and rehabilitation. But
so you've basically created a plant.
Yeah, exactly, of my own design. But I also work with, I know a lot of the people in the trade, in the concrete business on the mainland, on the other side, and I converse with them and we go over ideas, and I pick up ideas and trade tips from them.
Sure. I'm
friendly with them all. It's nice to be, you know, friendly with other guys that are in the business.
Yeah.
In order to get advice, you
Sure.
know. You know, it's just you don't want to pretend to know everything right off the bat.
Right.
You know, you kind of take the advice and piece it all together and come up with what works best for you.
What works for you out here in your business.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've got to ask you, can we go take a look at your facility?
Yes, we can do that.
All right.
A real brief, quick look. You know, don't want to give away all my trade secrets.
No, of course not. So let's follow you up there.
All right.
All right, so we're out here at your loading facility. This is an awesome place. I love stuff like this. Thanks for having us, by the way.
Yep.
Let's talk about basics for what concrete is made out of, right? You got 4 ingredients: water, cement dust, crushed stone, and sand.
Correct.
How are you getting all 4 of those ingredients out to your loading facility here and ultimately processing it to get it into the truck?
Well, for the water, we have our own well source, potable water. It's, you know, we add it to the truck, metered by a water meter, so many gallons per yard. As far as the other aggregate products, the 3/4 stone, that gets tractor trailered in from the mainland. It's all DOT certified, and same with the sand, all DOT certified. We do the extra little bit to, you know, make the product, you know, a quality product.
But you're hauling that, right? You own a truck,
Yeah,
you go to the
mainland,
mainland,
haul that in.
you have it loaded, you bring it back here.
Yeah.
but we talked earlier over at the site, you're having the cement dust delivered.
Correct.
Everything else you're bringing in yourself.
Correct.
Okay.
And the cement dust is contained in a silo right here. This silo holds about 28 tons of dust when full. And how the dust gets into the truck is we calculate how many pounds we want to use per yard. We use this is a scale here that weighs the entire silo. And so we just do a decumulative method. We just, as the dust is going in, the scale will count down, and we stop it at its proper point, depending on how many yards we're mixing.
So you know how many pounds you need based on the yardage of concrete you need.
Correct.
You do the math on there. It tells you where to stop that as that number is decreasing.
Yeah.
You basically hit an emergency stop button, so to speak, right?
Yeah,
and it shuts the silo down, and you've got now your dust measured at that point. Okay, cool.
You know, so
So the water goes in the truck first.
First.
Then you're bringing the dust in.
Well, we bring in we like all the materials to enter the truck at once. So
Okay.
we put in some sand and stone, and then we start adding our dust, and that continuously goes, and then we continuously add the sand and stone.
Okay.
We like all the ingredients to go in at once.
Kind of mix together, blend
yeah,
together.
exactly. It comes out better that way.
So
but when you're using a ready-mix truck, it's a big help in mixing everything to a consistent blend.
Right,
you know?
right.
So.
And you're using a skid steer to bring in the crushed stone and the sand
And load it
right
in this
here on the
hopper.
ramp, and you're just basically dumping that right in the hopper.
Correct.
And I think you mentioned your bucket has been sized and measured,
And
so when
weighed,
it's
yep.
and weighed, so when it's full of crushed stone or sand,
Yeah.
you know exactly how much you're adding. So all your calculation is essentially what I
Yeah.
think is referred to in the concrete world as mix design.
Yeah.
Is all measured and calculated, so you have consistent mixes, so you don't end up
Yep.
under mixing or over mixing that could lead to failures in the wet mix.
Correct. And you know, like I said before, you take advice from some of the other people in the trade.
Sure.
You know, I mean, we use all the proper admixtures, such as your Durex 2 air entrainment, your water reducers, and you know, whatever else is needed for the required job. So.
And you are using different additives for different times of the year, right? You might have a
Correct.
really hot day where you need to slow down the cure time a little bit.
Yep, we'll use some retarders in a case like that, and sometimes when you have a real low temperature, we'll use an accelerator, which is, you know, a polar set.
Right, which
to,
is used more in the winter
Yeah, exactly.
when it's colder.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So.
well, we appreciate you showing us the facility. I know you're a busy man. We're going to let you get back to work. We still have our walls to do on the site.
Yep.
We're going to find out when we're doing that. Again, this is one of these things, guys, with the logistics of working on the island, that your hopper might be out of cement dust,
Yeah.
and that ferry or barge coming in with it, we don't know when that's coming yet, so we don't have an exact day or even week when we're going to be able to do our walls. So again, just the logistics of the island, right? Stuff you deal with all the time.
It is more challenging, of course, with the importation, but you know, you get through it, and I mean, we usually hit our deadlines just fine. We work very well with our clientele and with communication in case there is a problem.
Sure.
That we, you know, everybody's on the same page.
Absolutely, that's such an important part of every project, communication. Well, I appreciate it, as I said. I'll let you get back to work, and I will see you hopefully in a week or two out at the site to do our walls.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you,
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Yep.
So I received a call from Dan, my project manager, last night, confirming that our concrete team is mobilizing this morning, which is great news. We're able to stay pretty much on schedule now with our concrete work. So change of plans for me today, and now I'm heading out to the airport to get to the island to meet with Dan and Chad, the concrete foreman, to get this process underway.
Pursuit, Cooper, and Grimes, please make sure you have your bags and bring them on out to the airplane.
Well, another beautiful day to fly out to Block Island. Quick, easy flight. We're on the job site. Today, the concrete team is back on site setting the formwork for our foundation walls. They've been on site for a few hours now, making pretty good progress. If this pace continues, we're hoping by end of day today, all the formwork will be up. Most of the rebar that's within that formwork will be complete as well, leaving just tomorrow to fine-tune some of the details for the foundation specifics here on this project. Now, the formwork you see behind me is pretty common today. We use these on most of our projects. This is a company called Steel Dog. I'm not super familiar with them. We use a brand on the mainland called Advance Forms, but essentially it's the same thing. Is that plane a problem? It's gotta be. These forms are lightweight, they're efficient. It's an HDO plywood, a high density overlay plywood. It's basically a fiber impregnated resin. These layers of the plywood are sandwiched together under pressure and heat to form a really durable, strong, and smooth exterior on this formwork. And then the strap system that's on all these forms make it really efficient for Chad and his crew to assemble and disassemble. So the efficiency level is much higher. Let's hop down the trench actually and see if we can grab Chad for a minute and go through the detail and the process of assembling these forms and how he's working his way around the perimeter here, carrying the forms and the rebar as he goes. All right, so we are with Chad, who is a busy man trying to get these forms up by the end of the day today. Chad, you've probably been doing this a while.
Yeah, 18 years.
18 years.
Yep.
So you have probably used the old forms, the old bulky heavy ones I was just talking about a minute ago.
Oh yeah, I experienced those killers, yeah.
So you are probably very happy to be working with these types of forms these days.
The old 2x4s, they're always wet with oil.
Saturated, heavy.
Always. It makes them so much heavier. They're dirty, they're heavy,
Yeah.
and they fall apart.
Yeah.
And the amount of hardware that goes into them.
Yeah.
It's not like these forms are simple. You put ties in, you swing a latch, and you're done. Those, there's 4 different types of hardware you have to take on and off the wall every time you set a form. So
Right.
these are so much more efficient, yeah.
Way
for
more
sure.
efficient. So what used to
For
maybe
sure.
take a job days to do with forms, now
Oh, yeah.
a job like this could be essentially done in a day or two.
A day or two,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So walk us through, we talked about, this is a 6-bar form system.
Yep.
So those are the horizontal bars you're seeing here.
Yep.
And for those of people that are watching this that aren't familiar with this process and the clips that attach the forms, the ties, the rebar, and how you're tying the rebar, just walk us through your process of how you're working these forms along with the rebar around the perimeter of the project here.
Gotcha. So the rebar is always site specific. So every type of plans will have a different set of rebar layout. It could have double rows. It could have a row every single run.
Right, like a
Tie.
grid patterns change.
Yeah, exactly.
These look like number 5 bar,
This
5/8
is a number
diameter.
5, yep. These aren't really lighter than the other ones, but they work a lot better. Just set your corner, slide it in. So this is the tie. This holds the whole wall together. This is the latch. This is a button.
Swing
So
it over.
you swing the latch to hit the button, pull the tie out, and that's it. You do it all the way up and down. Some go in a little easier than others. Sometimes you get to pry a little. Once
Just
the
like
form's
that.
up, yep. Once the panel's in place, ties. And ties also come in different sizes too. There's 10s. This is the width of the wall.
Right.
These are 10-inch ties. There's 8s, there's 12s, there's 6s, there's 16s. I had to form one with 32-inch ties once.
And 10 inch is pretty common in our market.
10-inch, yeah, is like the residential standard.
Right.
Ties in. Always, underneath the rebar here.
I see these are going in a certain way or not.
Yeah, if
I
they're
see
like
some of
this,
these have these little spots that are dipping down, some are
yeah,
up.
like that
but-
won't work. You
so
gotta
it's up
keep it-
or down.
The up or down doesn't really matter,
Right.
as long as it's laying flat.
Gotcha.
Some people use these as a guide for rebar. If there's 2 pieces in, they'll use that. We tie the rebar to the ties. Show you to the center. Tie it.
So just a wire tie connecting the form tie to the rebar.
To the
And that's
rebar.
holding everything in place,
Yep.
keeping it here so when the concrete's being placed,
It's not pushing
this
up.
isn't moving around, and we're
Exactly.
keeping our grid pattern, which is
Exactly.
per the engineer's
And some
criteria.
guys, like a new guy, will make a mistake of tying it to an upright. And then, God forbid, you're not square and you have to move a corner. Everything's tied together to these, so it won't move. So we learned that real quick. You never tie to an upright.
That's a great tip.
Stay away from that.
Great tip.
And that's the main thing with forming is straight plumb and then your diagonals. That's pretty much all we shoot for. Biggest thing is diagonals. We want to make sure when the guys come to frame, every corner is where it's supposed to be. You don't have that piece of sill hanging over an inch or tucked in an inch.
Right.
You want that
I've
all-
experienced that. You know, I bring in my framing crew after you guys get done your job,
Yep.
and
Like,
you know,
this thing's 3 inches out of square.
yeah, a good concrete team that pays attention to these details that you're speaking about make it really easy for the next team, the framing team, to come in and start
Exactly.
setting their mud sill and start setting their first
Exactly.
floor deck.
And especially with the limited amount of contractors out here, you gotta keep everyone happy. You know what I mean? You can't be a hack like some mainland guys and then just bounce around between contractors.
Right.
We only have a core 6 group of guys. So
Right.
we have to
You
keep
don't want to be
everyone-
known for doing
No,
shoddy work
never,
and,
no.
and building foundations that aren't square.
No, we're known for the best foundations. So.
Dan, we're making pretty good progress here. I should say Chad and his crew, with your supervision, obviously. Chad said this morning he'd have most of the form work up today. Now, I knew that wasn't going to be 100% complete. Just vertically, the forms would be standing.
Right.
There's a lot of details that go in after the forms are up. So at this point in this phase, as the project manager, what are you looking for? What are you paying attention to as far as like making sure those details are right?
Well, first off, we want to make sure that the rebar grid is in the correct configuration, that we follow the plans the way the engineer
So your
specified.
horizontal and vertical bars in the
So
wall.
that the horizontal bars are in the right place. The vertical bars are already in place from the footing, and then we get the corner detail correct.
Because that's a separate detail that
Right.
the structural engineer called out
Yeah,
to
he specified a certain distance from the corner that each bar is supposed to set, and that we tie it off correctly. And these guys they're doing a good job making sure all those details get set correctly. And then we want to make sure that there's a drop in the foundation for a window. We want to make sure we get that in the correct that it's the correct size and we get it in the correct place. And
So essentially that drop is a notch in the foundation wall to accommodate, I think, 2 or 3 banks, 2 or 3 windows wide.
right, it's a 7-foot opening in the foundation.
Yeah, so, and that's in the stairwell, so that whole stairwell is wide open from the ground level to the top floor, so a lot of glass and light coming in there.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So any beam pockets? Not here. We see that
No.
often, but none on this
No,
job.
not on this job. We don't have to worry about that problem here.
And
So-
any door drops here that
Nope,
need?
there's no door drop because it's a walkout. It's a walkout basement, and it's the same size.
So the slab is flush with the top of the frost wall here.
Correct.
Which is nice, our kind of preferred detail, because you don't have that cold joint on the outside, right? If you had the slab coming over the top of the wall,
Right.
then you have a horizontal cold joint, and that's,
Right.
sometimes not attractive to look at.
Nice
So
look.
next steps for you and Chad and the crew here is getting ready for those other little details, right?
Right.
Plumbing of the walls, stringing to make sure things are square,
Right.
plumb, reviewing the elevations of the 3 wall heights here, right? We have
Real important.
2 sides as a walkout.
Right.
So we've got kind of a step foundation here. So you'll be reviewing those heights with
Yep.
Chad.
We'll make sure we get the height set straight, and then double check, make sure everything's plumb level and square.
And why is plumb, level, and square important?
Well, you can't go out to the next phase. You can't. The framers will have a really difficult time if they.
Yeah,
have to
they might show
start
up and
going.
then turn around and leave if it's not perfect, right? So
Well, these guys don't want to. They don't want anybody working on an out of square foundation.
All right.
So they're taking a good time of it.
So, and it's like, we talk about, and I always talk about, whether it's on my Instagram or any sort of content, is how important this phase is, right? Concrete
deal.
isn't sexy, glorious work unless maybe it's board form concrete as an architectural detail, but foundation work really for the general public isn't sexy work, right? It's gonna get covered up with dirt and you don't really
Right.
see it, but it's a really critical part of the project, right? From the footing that we talked about earlier, bearing the whole weight of the home, and the foundation being built properly with its reinforcing, with the right concrete mix design,
Yep.
being plumb, being square, being level. that sets the stage for really everything else going on above it. Right? We don't want to have that mud sill overhanging the foundation by an inch on a corner because the foundation crew was lazy and just wanted to bang out a job and get to the next one. So it's always good to have a good trusted team. And I know we've been on this island for 30 or so years building. You've got a very good relationship with these guys. They do quality work.
Yeah, they're doing a great job.
Yeah, so we're off and running, and it feels good. So I appreciate your time. Thanks. I'll let you get back to it.
Sure.
Well, he was telling me last week it could be like a month before he gets dust.
Well, part of it is the tide. Part of it is the ferry schedule, because now it's summertime, and there's a lot of competition for the space on the boat. And he's a regular. They take care of him.
Trying to accommodate him.
Yeah. But there's only so much you can do. There's only so many spaces to fill.
Understood. Well, let's hope for the best here.
Yeah.
If you can just do me a favor and stay on top of him, keep the pressure on, see if there's some way he can get even a smaller quantity of dust over here or something to keep us moving forward.
If he can keep us moving, we will.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Yep.
Well, despite Dan being able to keep some pressure on Billy, our concrete subcontractor, to get that dust on the island and keep this project moving forward as far as the concrete work goes, we just had bad luck last week. We had a short week to begin with. We had weather that, 3 days of weather from pea soup fog. I mean, you could barely see 100 feet in front of you here on the island all the way back to the mainland. And then we had thunderstorms and rain. We just couldn't get the concrete into these forms last week. So here we are, it's a Monday, the weather's beautiful, and we jumped right on it. Behind me, the guys are placing about 35, 40 yards of concrete today in those HDO forms. Those are going to make up our foundation walls here for the new home. After that gets placed today, tomorrow they'll be back on site to strip those forms and get the site kind of cleaned up and ready for the next phase. And that next phase, we're going to focus on episode 3. So you won't want to miss episode 3 because we will be talking about everything going on under the slab and our interior and exterior French drains. We're going to be doing some foundation waterproofing, backfilling, all of that fun stuff to get ready for framing, which is going to start in a couple of weeks. So you won't want to miss episode 3. Stay tuned for that. Until then, I'm Wade Paquin with Building on an Island.